Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada. I'm skipping the face-to-face portion of this week's video because my hair is a mess. I just got it cut and we're all better off this way, okay? If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope that you will consider hitting that subscribe button by the time we get to the end of this video. It's a little soon to be asking now, right? But I have a tendency to wait until the very end and it's like, oh yeah, welcome. So if this is your first time here, welcome. So I am kind of doing a catalog mashup. We are going to use Brushed Blooms, which is in the mini catalog, but we are going to use this Stitched Greenery die that's in the new annual catalog. Okay, so we need these two bundles, obviously. And for my flowers, I am using Polished Pink, Calypso Coral, and So Saffron with the blending brushes. I am using an aqua spritzer, and we need something that is waterproof, basically. We're going to do all our blending on here, and then we're going to spritz it and stick our cardstock into it. So if you want to put some paper towel down or something to keep your surface nice and dry, clean, go ahead and do that now. Now, I am going to switch up the greens that I'm using simply because I don't have the other two prepared. So I'm using just Jade and Mint Macaron, and I think those are going to look gorgeous. It will really change up the look. This was Pear Pizzazz and Garden Green, so it will look quite different. So the first thing we need to do, let's do our die cutting and embossing first. So we're going to take this die that is part of the Brushed Blooms bundle and we'll run that through. Now you will find that these little pieces always want to stay in here. You can just use your take your pick tool or some other kind of pokey tool, and I just recommend going over a garbage can or something so that you can pick them all up. But I am going to show you what I do and a cool tool that I have to do it with, and the link to this tool will be in the description below, because I think that, well, it's not a Stampin' Up! Tool, it is a must-have for any kind of crafter. So it is this cute little Starfrit tabletop vacuum. Love it. And just like that, they are all gone. I think I'm going to take off a little bit of the top and the bottom just so that we have kind of an even mat on the four sides, and then we can see stitching on both the upper and lower layer. You might be wondering how I line these up. So first off, I did, and it's probably not very obvious, but I used the new Bark 3D embossing folder on this upper piece. I don't know if you can see it because I, of course, die cut it for the stitching after that, but let's go ahead and do that. I just like the texture that it added. So that is this new Bark folder. I apologize for the glare. And I will just run that through. It is a 3D embossing folder, so we need our 3D mat. Let me just bring this in because I'm going to have to show you how I did this part. So, and maybe you've never seen an embossing folder go through. It's magic. If you've never seen it, it's magic. It is quite, honestly, I think what gets most people hooked. I know the first time I saw it, I was hooked. And funny story, the cable knit embossing folder from a few years ago is my gateway to Stampin' Up! It's actually just sitting on a shelf in here because it's that important to me. It was my gateway drug. Okay, so we are done with the embossing, the 3D thing. So now what I'm going to suggest is we put our sandwich back together for die cutting. And I actually faced it up towards me. This plate is rather warped, so I'm not all that concerned with damaging it at this point. But what I wanted to do was face it up towards me. I'm sorry you can't see the full thing. And then we'll run it through there. Now you want to keep it as straight as possible because that will make lining up the other piece easy. So I'm not sure if you noticed, but it took a little bit of muscle to crank that, and that's because I ran it going straight through. I'm going to show you on this next piece that it is much easier if you put it in on an angle. So what I'm going to do with this is lay it over that. Bring this back just because that's where I'm more comfortable with it. And I'm sorry, I know you get a shadow from the light bouncing off of there. So what I want to do is figure out where I had this to begin with. And all you have to do, okay, we're not going to pop this one up. We're just going to, oh, look at that. There wasn't enough for it to hang on to. Okay. When the time comes, I will fix that, but I need to figure out where these leaves were. So I'm just going to line it up, and that looks about right. It doesn't lock in quite the way as others do, but I can feel that that's in the right place. So basically what I'm going to do, and there's no like magic trick to this, basically what I need to do is lay this so that I'm overlapping. So I've got about 3/4 of an inch up there. So I'm just going to eyeball it, and if it's straight, that ought to help. As long as we're covering that same area. Now this time, of course, once I've gotten it straight, I decide to move it. I'm going to put it on an angle. This is a full-size die that we're putting through, and the roller can struggle when there's this much to go over. Okay, so there is our background, and you could just use it like that. You don't have to have this other piece over top. Okay, so we're gonna have to glue this down. I don't want to have to figure that out, but again, we're going to take it and line it up. Now, it is entirely possible that this is upside down, and it really is not hard to line up. So once you figure it out, the bottom will be easy because it's just gonna go where the other part finishes. So because this ripped, obviously I wouldn't recommend cutting it as close as I did, especially because we're die cutting it afterwards. Lesson learned. I did that so that you don't have to make that same mistake. Honestly, I didn't even think that was going to be an issue, but clearly it was. So make sure that you leave a bigger border on the side. And now we're just going to line this up again. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to lock in per se, but you want the lines to kind of jive. So take this leaf, for example, you can see that it continues. Oh, look, it's ripping in more places. There was no way this one was ever going to be popped up for a shaker card. Now, as long as I can keep that intact, that will make it easier. Who knew? Okay, so I'm going to line it up here, right where it ripped. And this is because of the stitching and the fact that I didn't have a very wide border to begin with. You can see that on my first one, it filled the whole card. I did not have this issue. So this is liquid glue. You want to work fairly quickly. I can tell you, it's not going to look the same not being popped up, but it is a super cute technique, isn't it? Okay, so I might take a little bit off the side. Now I can show you the technique. I wanted to save the technique for the end, I mean for this point, because I didn't want to be running my card base and mats through this mess. So let's bring in Polished Pink, Calypso Coral, and So Saffron. And I have to give credit, because this wasn't my idea, I've modified it to be my own, which I do anytime I case. But Sherry Stojkovic had a Brushed Blooms video where she did kind of this technique, but she used the Stamparatus plate, and I thought, well, I have laminated grid sheets that I could use, so I did that. So I'm going to put a little bit of ink on the sheet, which is what she did, but I'm also going to make a bit of a tweak. And I don't want this pattern to be predictable. And truth be told, I probably should have started with the So Saffron because I don't want my colors to mix. Put a little bit up there. And this is just, we just need enough to cover our card base. So now what I'm going to do is grab the re-inkers in those same 3 colors. So I'll start with Polished Pink because it is closest. And I'm just going to add a little bit. That's probably more than enough. And a little bit of the So Saffron. And some Calypso Coral. And then this is going to be where the spritzer comes in, because if I leave these as big dots of re-inker, it's going to create dots on my cardstock that I don't want. Okay, so I'm just gonna protect my ink pads, give it a bit of a spritz, and play around with it. The closer you spritz, the more it sprays, and the further you are, well, it still splatters. But like I said, I don't want to have these big, intense spots of color so that it's like straight re-inker. Now this is just plain basic white cardstock. I'm just going to push it down, splash that color all the way to the edges. And there we go. I'll hit it with my heat tool, and we could easily get another 1 or 2. Actually, maybe we will do that because I ended up using more than 1 sheet before. Okay, so we've got plenty left on there. And then this probably looks really pastel to you, and it does to me. I am going to hit it with my heat tool, and then I'm going to use my blending brushes to bring back some of that color that we watered down a lot. When it's lying nearly flat, you know that it's pretty much ready to go. I'm going to bring this back in. Even dried that ink that was still wet. So let's start with So Saffron this time, and we're just going to intensify what we already had. I find that they all need a punch of color, but Polished Pink seems to be the most. It turns very purpley as it fades. And if you darken it up more than you wanted, you can spritz it again and use a paper towel to just sop up some of that water, which will lift some of the color as well. I'm okay with this as is. I'm going to leave these out because even after I die cut them, I may end up adding a little bit more. And I will show you one of the tricks that I use to get some more intense color, because as you can see, these are not those. So in this set of dies, there are a number of layering pieces. I cut one of each out of this sheet. And I had 2 of the smaller flowers and 1 of the large, but I mean, you do what you want to do. But spread them out so that you get a little bit of everything. This is our backup sheet in case I want to do more flowers. Okay, so this is our large flower base. Got 1 of the small. I definitely need another 1 of the small ones. I find that they usually come out of the dies quite easily, but if they don't, just use your take your pick tool and pop it out. And despite all the little pieces, they aren't all that fragile. So decide if you want too large or too small, and then just do your die cutting for that second flower. There is quite a bit of die cutting with this card because there is only 1 of each flower. I thought about using the In Bloom flowers because there are so many different ones, but I've barely touched this set, and it's only with us for another 6 weeks as of the date that this video goes live, so time is of the essence. Now, they are fairly easy to stack up. They don't have to stack up. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I found that if I wanted to add a bit more color, let's say we want some more polished pink. I held it down with my take your pick tool. Try not to poke a hole in it like I just did. And then with the actual flowers, I came in with my Stampin' Blends. And this is light Calypso Coral. It makes it stand out more from the base. And because it's light Calypso Coral, it's making it all a little more corally, which is okay. I know corally is not a word, but it can be. And then I'm just going to use liquid glue to adhere these. If you want, you could add the adhesive sheets. You would have to do it after you used your heat gun because I think it would make it peel. And then you'd be creating your own little stickers. If you get some glue that pops out, just press it down. And then I love how this has more of the So Saffron on it, so it will stand out. Now play around with placement. Sometimes they can stack just perfectly. Other times it's like they're not even the same flower. Now I have said before, I'll say it again, if you are using Stampin' Write markers, Stampin' Blends to ink up your die, whatever it is, your die or your punch, do it from the back, because if your hand slips, the worst case is you slip on the back. If you use it from the front, so like this, and your hand slips, it's all over all of your hard work. So do it from the back. Okay, so there's our one large flower. And I think I'm going to mix and match here. Can you see how easy it is to figure out where they go? It's awesome. Okay, so this one I'm going to do the Calypso Coral again. This time, obviously, I'm doing it from the front because I'm inking up the whole thing. And you could bring in the dark Calypso Coral too. I actually did that on my first go round. I mean, this is an artistic set, so feel free to play. It's paper crafting, right? We should play, not take it so seriously. I mean, I don't hate to admit it. I don't love to admit it either, but I waste my fair share of cardstock playing around. Okay, and then there's one more little one that will go on top. Let's save that one for that. Okay, so I am going to take the two leaf dies, and I'm cutting them both out of Just Jade this time. It was Garden Green the first time around. Okay, so for this, it's not a complicated trick. It's nothing genius, but I did take my Just Jade Stampin' Blend and I colored all of them. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, you're using Just Jade on Just Jade. Woo, earth shattering. But I did actually use Just Jade on the Garden Green the first time, and it gives you an entirely different green. But we don't have a Garden Green Stampin' Blend, so I'm just gonna go with simple here and do tone on tone. So give those a few seconds to dry, and then we will take our liquid glue and just adhere these. Okay, so now it's time to build our little scene. And this will all just wipe off with a baby wipe. So I like to start by putting the largest one down, and I'm going to put that in the corner. I think we'll put this one that's a little more orangey up there. Now, if you're worried that it may be, this one's a little bit too pink, come in again with your Calypso Coral, and that will yellow it up a bit. And you can pop those up. I'm just going to glue them. That's what I did the first time, and you could see I hesitated there for a second. I thought about popping these ones up because our mats are glued right down, and then I thought, let's just keep it low profile. Now I don't want that over there. I want it over there, and don't worry about that little bit of glue because I will be putting a leaf there. So just add a little bit of glue to the leaves and the stem and tuck it in. And of course, we're working in 3s. Any odd number will do. Going to pop this one in here just to break up a little bit of the green on green. If you notice on this one, you don't really see much of this leaf. Initially I had tucked it in there, and then when I went to put it in with the glue on, I tucked it a little too far back. You want them to stand out. We didn't just do all this die cutting for nothing. And then we can tuck that one in there. And then kind of thinking maybe silver would be nice on this one, but let's stick with it. This is the new, I believe it's called Elegant Trim. It's part of the Elegantly Said suite of products. The DSP is to die for. I'm using these new Genial Gems. You can see there's a whole bunch of coloring on there. I ran out of the peach ones that I wanted, so I colored them with my Stampin' Blends. And I hope that you know that any embellishment can be colored with Stampin' Blends. Even ribbon can be colored with Stampin' Blends. So if you want to change the look, experiment. Worst case, you don't love it. Best case, you've created something new. Okay, so again, working in those 3s. I want to keep them all kind of up here. I think I'm going to leave it without the sentiment. I'm really liking it as is, but look at what a difference that made between the 2 greens. Well, the 4 shades of green. So we've got Pear Pizzazz and Garden Green, which is a very yellow green, and then we've got Mint Macaron and Just Jade, which are very much blue greens. The flowers kind of look the same-ish, but let me know in the comments below which one you love. Maybe you love them both, hopefully, but let me know if you have a preference for one or the other. And I thank you so much for watching. I hope that if you haven't hit that subscribe button below already, that you will consider doing so now. Catch a new video each and every week. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.